Hi, everyone.
Hello again.
We are in the Pure Worship publication. We're at page 48, and we're going to read a paragraph and a half at the subheading, Jehovah is close to all his loyal servants. And there's an interesting question at the end of this section, because it's the end of the chapter, which is, how does this vision of Ezekiel assure you that you are never beyond the reach of Jehovah's love? So there's something here to think about. Does the subheading and that question, can they go together?
Yeah.
Jehovah is close to all his loyal servants, and how does this vision of Ezekiel assure you that you are never beyond the reach of Jehovah's love? So the paragraph and a half that I'm reading starts, through this first vision, Ezekiel learned a vital, heartening truth about his relationship with Jehovah. What was it? The truth is indicated in the opening words of the prophet's book. After stating that he was in the land of the Chaldeans, Ezekiel, speaking about his own experience, added, "There the hand of Jehovah came upon him." Note that Ezekiel stated that he received the vision not in Jerusalem, but there in Babylon. So what did that fact reveal to Ezekiel? This: although he was a lowly exile who had been separated from Jerusalem and its temple, he had not been separated from Jehovah and his worship. Jehovah appearing to Ezekiel in Babylon demonstrated that rendering pure worship to God did not depend on location or position. Instead, it depended on Ezekiel's heart condition and his desire to serve Jehovah. Why is the truth that Ezekiel learned of great comfort to us today? It assures us that when we serve Jehovah wholeheartedly, he remains close to us, no matter where we may live, how distressed we may feel, or under what circumstances in life we may find ourselves. Jehovah moved by his abundant loyal love for each of his servants, does not quickly give up on us. Therefore, we are never beyond the reach of Jehovah's loyal love.
Well, it's a nice thought. It's a heartening thought that God never gives up on us. But there's always something dangling over you if you're a witness, right? Which is the other thought in the subhead.
Loyal. So
what was it? Read again.
It's Jehovah is close to all his loyal servants. So they're tying it to your loyalty, your obedience. You're doing the right things. So he doesn't give up on you if you're
reciprocating his love.
If you're loving him, then he'll love you.
Which
They've even put it that way.
They have put it that way more explicitly than they do here. So there's some good points here. And I think that the question you read at the beginning is particularly noting this particular point, which is, read that one again, the last question.
How does this vision of Ezekiel assure you that you are never beyond the reach of Jehovah's love?
Well, I would say they've got the right principle, but the wrong application, i.e., does not the very situation you say that sets up this discussion, Ezekiel in exile, the nation being disciplined, God's organization as it were been destroyed, because the center of the cult, the headquarters as you would think of it as a witness, Jerusalem was destroyed. And the temple has been destroyed, so the priests can't do their work. The king's been taken off the throne. The organization, in effect, doesn't exist anymore. But God is dealing with an individual
Ezekiel,
who is representing the organization, because he's a prophet as well as a priest, just as Jeremiah was. So he's dealing with them as people, but as individuals. the remnant principle of the Old Testament. Elijah had to learn that lesson. Remember when he felt quite alone? God preserves for himself, or reserves for himself, a remnant.
Yeah.
All times, because of his commitment to Israel, not as an organization, but as a people.
Yeah. So when they say, therefore we are never beyond the reach of Jehovah's loyal love, the emphasis there seems to be on Jehovah's loyal love, and yet, who are the we? We are never beyond the reach. They're not thinking in terms of an individual. I think they're thinking in terms of Jehovah's Witnesses. We, as an organization, are never beyond Jehovah's love.
But at no point.
But Ezekiel was an individual, and he receives a message from God while in exile with his people.
So the dilemma they never managed to solve in their analysis of even God's organization concept is how many loyal worshipers do you have to have in this organization before you call yourself the true religion? In Israel, it was never more than a small remnant. In the exile, we have Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Daniel, and a few others that we know the names of. But everybody else is under judgment. In fact, Daniel, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel are under judgment because they're suffering with the disloyal.
Yeah.
That identification, which is nowhere in the way you look at things, it's always up to you to be individually loyal, but the bigger loyalty is always defined by your relationship with men, that is the organization.
Yeah.
So it's as if Jeremiah's loyalty to God was being measured by his commitment to the establishment in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Which wasn't there, of course. That's why he was in prison a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So when they even talk about these two principles together, when they think of the question principle, which is about God's loyal love, and then they have the subhead about your loyal love, your loyalty as a servant.
Yeah.
What is that loyalty measured by? It's your relationship with the organization. And I would say that what visibly gives it away is the shunning principle.
Yeah.
God has not shunned Ezekiel, the individual Ezekiel and the individual Jeremiah, because they don't get along with his organization. He hasn't shunned them.
Yeah.
Whereas you know from your own experience that when you leave or even question the leaders of this organization, you are immediately judged as to your heart condition.
And you're judged based on how you treat the governing body, how you view the organization.
Yeah.
Not on how you view Jehovah. When we left, we said we love Jehovah, we love Jesus, and yet
Scripture.
That's just discounted as nothing. And it's not just our experience. We've heard many who have said that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you say, I love Jehovah, I love Jesus, I want to serve God, I'm going to continue to read the Bible. It makes no difference if you're not loyal to the governing body.
And even this phrase that you hear all the time in witness literature and at the Kingdom Hall, heart condition. God's looking for people with the right heart condition. You never stop to ask yourself, where does that heart condition come from? In Israel, it was because God was reserving for himself a remnant and bringing forth great individuals like Elijah and Elisha and Ezekiel here. God is doing it. You're not doing it. God's not looking for people with the right heart.
Yeah. Transformation doesn't come from you. It comes from God.
So this is not a biblical phrase, although the idea occurs sometimes, and we'll see one of the texts in Isaiah here where it actually occurs, but it's certainly not something that God judges by. He's not separating peoples based on heart condition. Look at this passage from Isaiah chapter 1. This is the first 6 verses of Isaiah chapter 1 from the New World Translation. The vision that Isaiah the son of Amos saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Hear, O heavens, and pay attention, O earth, for Jehovah has spoken. Sons I have brought up and raised, but they have revolted against me. A bull well knows its buyer, and a donkey the manger of its owner, but Israel does not know me. My own people do not behave with understanding. Woe to the sinful nation, the people weighed down there, a brood of wicked men, corrupt children. They have abandoned Jehovah. They have treated the Holy One of Israel with disrespect. They have turn their backs on him, where will you be struck next as you add to your rebellion? The whole head is sick. The whole heart is diseased. From the sole of the foot to the head, nothing is healthy. There are wounds and bruises and open sores. They have not been treated or bound up or softened with oil. So what's the heart condition of Judah and Jerusalem in the days when Isaiah is raised up? Another example of God honoring the remnant principle. He's the prophet of the remnant principle in chapter 6. God is raising up his spokesmen who are being persecuted by the organization.
Yeah.
And here you have the contrast, though, which is, although they're rebellious, they are corrupt children, he says, but they are children. They are sons that he has brought up and raised. They are my own people, he says in verse 3.
Yeah. And Isaiah is one of his children, one of his sons, who he calls to discipline the other children.
All the
or
prophets,
at least to give the message.
All the prophets are Israelites raised up to chastise Israel.
Yeah.
And we forget that. So you have God's people, God's fidelity and loyalty to his people as a whole. Nevertheless, it's manifest in God sending messengers who are not received well over and over again.
Yeah. He sends someone to speak.
So is that the end? I mean, according to you, the heart condition of Israel caused God ultimately to cast them off.
Yeah.
But that's not the end of the story.
So you don't make it about relationship, and it's certainly not in the sense of family relationship.
Yeah.
You make it about how you view the leaders, the governing body of your organization. I mean, when you we hadn't even left the witnesses, but when you decided, I'm going to have to take some time because we were having these difficulties, I need some time to think. I think that was the way you put it. And you sent a letter just saying, I can't be an elder right now. I need time to think. And then they called you down to the meeting, and what did
Don say? Don, the youngest elder who was living with me during this period, in the period that we weren't married yet, he had been living with me in the house with 4 other young witness bachelors. Don, who had just been made an elder in the previous year, says to me, the very last thing he said to me was, so you think you know better than Jehovah's organization?
And you hadn't even revealed anything yet. You just said you needed to think about things. So
at that very moment, even though I anticipated someone would say that something like that, the very fact that it came out of his mouth, his last thought to me as I left was, you know better than them.
Yeah.
And you know that hasn't changed in those 37 years since he said that, which is, there's far more emphasis, far more explicit emphasis now upon the importance of loyalty than there was then.
Yeah, and the test is loyalty to the org, not your conscience. And things that you need to be resolved about so that you can have pure convictions. No, that doesn't matter as long as you're loyal to them.
But of course, God's relationship with Israel, out of Egypt I call my son, we might remember. That was originally a reference to Israel as a whole. Here it says individuals, my sons, in Isaiah 1. But then the end of the story is not that they remain rebellious forever, as you have it as a witness. No, that's not the end. So a very familiar passage is Isaiah 65, where you have the first reference to a new heavens and new earth. But look at the context here. We wanted to read, 4 verses?
Yeah, we're going to read first verse 14, where he says, Look, my servants will shout joyfully because of the good condition of the heart. But you will cry out because of the pain of heart, and you will wail because of a broken spirit. So I guess that was because of the good condition of the heart. I wanted to read that verse. Then when you get to the part that we're more familiar with, 17, For look, I am creating new heavens and a new earth, and the former things will not be called to mind, nor will they come up into the heart. Then 18 and 19 says, So exult and be joyful forever in what I am creating. For look, I am creating Jerusalem a cause for joy, and her people a cause for exultation. And I will rejoice in Jerusalem and exult in my people. No more will they be heard there be heard in her the sound of weeping or a cry of distress.
So the part that's missing, if you're witness, is everything but verse 17.
Yeah.
What's this about? Well, it's a promise of new heavens and new earth, starting with God's restored people,
In
restored
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem, and the heart condition, the right heart condition, is at the end. It's not at the beginning, as we saw in chapter 1.
And it's his creation. He's going to change hearts.
Yeah.
It's not their doing, it's his doing.
So another prophet of the exile, it makes that explicit. Jeremiah says the heart is treacherous. Who can know it? But then he says in 31 that one day God will write his law in their hearts. And that nation, therefore, the nation he started with, will be as eternal as the heavens and the earth. So that's why new heavens and new earth is so important here, because it makes it clear that there's a relationship between the restoration of the whole world and the restoration of Israel, which is something you don't see at all as a witness.
Yeah.
What are our links? I can't read
Okay.
your writing.
I'll read it. It's a Ray Fran's video from his book, In Search of Christian Freedom.
Mm-hmm.
It is called "Is Love Possible in JW's Present Truth Religion?"
Yeah, we should unpack that.
Yeah.
Since you're always being asked to be loyal to the current teachings of the organization,
Yeah.
that in itself shows you where loyal
Where your
love now
loyalty
is supposed to be. It's
Yeah.
a relationship between you and them,
Mm-hmm.
the leaders, not between you and Jehovah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
See you next time.